Alright, it is 9:01 a.m. We will begin this special meeting of the Lake County Board of County Commissioners. We have budget adoption on the agenda today and certification of the mill levy. I didn't see who that's led by, but I'm assuming it's led by County Manager Candace Bryans, who worked till the wee hours of the morning, making sure everything is right with this, and I have the utmost respect and gratitude for the amount of effort and hard work that staff has been putting into this. So immediately, right off the bat, I wanna say thank you to the team, the staff, everyone in finance, everyone in every department who's made hard decisions in this whole process.
Yeah.
So you got a public hearing first on your agenda.
Here, look,
Oh, sorry,
you have to open the public hearing.
alright. At this time, we will open public hearing on the Lake County budget for the fiscal year 2026. Is this public comment?
Yeah,
Is this,
open it
okay,
up for
alright,
public hearing.
let it rip, lay it on us, bring it. We'll start with anyone in the room who wants to make any comment on the budget process for the 2026 budget for Lake County.
I have a short question.
Sure, if you just wanna state your name for the record and
So, my name is Paul Mueller, resident here in Lake County. Has the budget changed at all from the preliminary numbers that you went over, and maybe, will that be part of the meeting going over how the budget has changed from the, okay. Alright, that's kind of that's why I'm here, to kind of hear what the final budget is and how it's changed, if at all.
It's changed quite a bit. We wanted to make sure that we were using estimated audited balances.
Yeah.
Our audit should be done at the end of this month,
Okay,
which we've done two this year.
right.
But we wanted to make sure that we had as close to estimated,
At that
you know,
point,
ending fund balances for 24
okay,
before we used those in those calculations. And then other than road and bridge and one other fund, we didn't really touch any of the other fund
Okay.
balances, and we certainly didn't touch any in our general fund. Our commissioners, we had a work session and just to get, you know, some feelings from them about where they would mill.
okay,
And the feeling was that they would mill lower than what
Okay.
we had built our budget on, so I
Got it.
did drop down to 39.5 mils, which is where we're at this year.
okay,
And then our assessor came back with lower assessed values than what he gave us in August.
okay,
We build the budget off of what he gives us in August, knowing it will change, and we'll know usually, I think in November, he has to submit to the state, and then he gets back with us in early December and gives us kind of the,
final.
here's what I submitted.
Okay,
And we did see that it dropped
got it,
a bit from what he had thought in November, to what we got in December, so we had to
Okay.
drop a bit more for
so you
that.
tried to hit a moving
We
target.
got a lot of things.
Tell me it's a moving target a little bit, okay,
Yes,
Got it,
if
thank
that's
you.
helpful.
yeah, no, it is, I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
And I know you reached out, I still would
No,
like to
that's
sit
all right,
down at
I
some
know it's
point.
been crunched up, appreciate it.
Great, well, thank you for that, Paul. Is there anyone online who had any public comment? You can just unmute, or if you wanna raise your hand, or if no one, if you're just here to listen, then you don't have to do anything. Okay. With that out of the way, if no one else has anything for that, we will move on to agenda item number 2, discussion and consideration of resolution 2025-34, a resolution adopting the annual budget and making appropriations for the county for the fiscal year commencing January 1st, 2026. This will be led by the not so very well rested Candace Bryans, County Manager.
Alright, thank you so very much. I have to give a big shout out to Sarah and Will and the rest of the finance team. It's been a push to get us here, especially with our numbers changing so much in the first week of December. So we have really worked hard to make sure that we've got a really great budget and that we are following all of our statutory requirements. So I'm gonna start with the budget book, which will be the only thing we will be adding to this before we post it online is a table of contents and then PDFing it. Nothing else will change in this document. So I'm gonna start here. And then I'll probably walk us through the resolution, because it really has the language for the statutory requirements from DOLA. There are a couple, so the budget book has some of them, like the county manager statement, et cetera. Alright, so we are not gonna read this whole thing, because no one wants me to read 40 pages of them. Alright, everyone in the room, just hit view and then let them in, admin,
Not when it's
at middle.
And I wanna see live mic.
Saving the day.
You're here, Sandra.
We're back.
He's recording.
Alright, thank you IT.
Oh, no problem, sorry guys.
Good day, it's
Sorry.
Command itself for anyone on, that was Justin who just saved us. Thank you, Justin.
I'll be nearby.
Okay, yes. Alright, so we're gonna end the technical difficulties pause. We just had, due to the login, something wrong with Zoom, it booted us off, so we apologize to everyone in the room, everyone online. We're gonna get started again. According to some of the people we just chatted with, it sounded like we dropped off right about when we got started. So we're going to recap the beginning and dive back into this. Uh-oh. Did we just drop again?
No.
Oh. Alright,
Okay, everyone on iPhone, give me just a moment, I'm gonna share the screen with you, and we'll restart the budget.
Practice.
Take two.
Nice.
there we go.
Alright.
Good catching me.
Thank you.
We'll leave it there so we don't have to with us.
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, so we're gonna start over. So I'm gonna walk through the Lake County Government Budget Book, and then we are gonna switch to look at some of the language in the resolution. A lot of the language in the resolution is going to be hitting all of our requirements from DOLA for our adopted budgets. So we have to have a 3-year look back, we have to have estimated beginning and ending fund balances for all of our funds. We have to have a written budget message. What else? We have to have no deficit spending. We have to have information about our COP, which is in this packet. And then the resolution and ordinances. So we'll have to turn all those things into DOLA. So some of our items are captured here. We don't put the whole budget message in the resolution, that's excessive. But we will be submitting a line by line this budget book, and the resolutions when we submit it to.
Line by line's in the resolution, you're saying?
Yeah, I asked
Okay.
for Sandra to print this and that to go in there.
Cool.
Okay, I'm gonna take this back down a notch. I made it large to show some of our graphs. Okay, so for everyone online, we have our Lake County Government Budget Book. The only thing that will be changing about this before we post it online is we'll be adding a table of contents and putting it in PDF format, that is accessible, so that people can take a look at this online. I'm not gonna read through every bit of this document, but I'm just gonna kind of hit the high points about our goals, about what went into building the budget, about some of the challenges we've had this year, and we see that will likely continue in the next few years as we lose more of our state funding, for some of our statutorily required departments. We've also had a lot of grants that are no longer available to us, and that we don't know that they'll actually be available again in the future. So one of the requirements from DOLA is our budget message. This essentially gives a high level overview of what our statutory requirements are, that we are focused on serving people and covering those first. That we're committed to transparent practices, being responsible stewards, and long-range viewing. So we want to start really doing 5-year plans now that we've really gotten audit information cleaned up. So one of the things that went into developing this budget is the fact that the state and federal funding conditions have changed literally every week and continue to change. We know that DHS is gonna have some changes about the type of model that the state wants to use for certain parts of their department. Public health is slated to lose more funding next year, which means we would have to offset some of the public health costs, which you might think, well, let's just not do those things, but a lot of the items in those departments are statutorily required, so we don't get to opt out of them. They're just unfunded mandates for the most part. Other things that we're trying to do are strengthen our organizational capacity. We really wanna focus on modernizing our IT and systems, getting our processes documented so we can assess them and refine them and make them more efficient where it's warranted, and not depend on having multiple people just so you have historical context when we could actually document things. So even if those people leave us, we have that information on hand. A significant priority is for us to have a comprehensive data-driven capital asset management plan, and then develop that plan with a 5-year outlook, and then each year update it, for the next 5 years, so we know what we have to fix. And then we can start to line out what's top priority, what's middle priority, but first of all, we have to know really what do we have and what does it need, and so that work will really be done in 2026. And that's to include land, buildings, recreational facilities, etc. We have our budgetary basis of accounting in here, which we operate on a modified accrual basis of accounting, and this piece is required by DOLA. I'll talk lightly about each of these priorities. So we'll be finishing up the housing at 10-2 project this next year and getting those units filled. I'd have to honestly ask Jackie where she's at in terms of, I think a few buyers have changed in the last time I've really gotten that overview from her. Where we'll be going after that project is done is we'll be looking at regulatory tools, partnerships, and programs that would help affordable housing in our community, and really more to include exploring what could ADUs or mobile home communities look like from the terms of lodging and vacancy related taxes, but also really just regulations and how can we use our zoning and our codes to help improve our options for housing rather than always necessarily funding housing ourselves. We're looking at improving our roads and infrastructure. Our IT infrastructure is really lacking in terms of security, and we have 5, 6, 7 systems, and instead we've really moved all of those IT costs, which IT is in operations. Historically, next year IT will be in its own department. But it is in operations for this year. We put a significant amount of our funding towards replacing some of our IT equipment, knowing what we have, and we've moved IT out of every single department's budget to say, hey, you actually need to check in with IT before getting IT items, because we wanna make sure they work, we wanna make sure we understand them, and if it could serve 5 departments, we wanna use that one tool to serve 5 and get a better rate than having 5 departments with 5 tools that don't work, that no one's vetted. So we're really dialing that in. We put quite a bit of money into the paving budget. We did have to make some cuts there just because we are milling a little lower, and also our property valuation that we got in August was slightly lower than what our final was from the assessor, which that impacts the amount of money we can draw down on. We'll be assessing for deferred maintenance across buildings, lands, rec facilities, and just making sure we understand our long-term needs. In terms of economic development, we really wanna ask ourselves how we can partner regionally and with state partners. And really look at having other viable options. This year was particularly tough because of the valuation that Mark had for the mine. And if you think about how tough it made the budget this year to have that real, that drop, thinking about losing that revenue completely feels pretty impossible. So really, it behooves us to figure out what do we need to do. Do we need to look at having our planning and zoning processes look different or streamlined, or can we work with the EDC or the tourism panel to say, okay, what are some incentives we could have and how could we use anybody that wants to develop? Maybe we need infrastructure for our own items, maybe that's a request, and trying to have some really intelligent trade-offs. We wanna create a social safety net in terms of behavioral health, childcare, and emergency support. We wanna continue to provide recreational services to the best of our ability. We do know that we're really assessing every program in that area and saying, hey, maybe we can't offer everything, but what can we offer? And maybe there's a rotation of offering different things at different times of year. And how can we utilize our full-time staff a little differently so we can really have a good plan when we're using part-time and seasonal staff. Operational efficiency, we've talked about improving processes, and then community engagement. We wanna make sure that as we're pursuing grants, we try to really include our other partners instead of using our general fund. To try to say, hey, is there a service you could provide for us that would save us an FTE plus benefits plus the increase every year for COLA? Maybe that's a great opportunity for that nonprofit to have some funding, but also for us to use those funds a little more intelligently. And then to try to use our IGAs and our partnerships across governments, nonprofits and local boards. Alright, I'm not gonna read the overview of Leadville, it will be online for you. So we've got kind of an overview of our budget, just in brief here. It says what we prioritize public services and responsible stewardship and spending. It talks just a little bit about the careful planning that we had this year. I'm gonna make this just a little bigger. So we've got just a couple of, sorry. Of charts here that kind of break out our revenue by source and percentage. You can see general fund revenues are really a big portion. We want to really take some time this year and ask ourselves, are we charging enough for use of facilities when it's appropriate? Are we charging enough for services? Are we, does our permit costs make sense? Could we be doing different things with fuel at the airport in the future? So we're trying to really become more efficient in operations and ask ourselves, where could we hopefully increase some of these items where we're able to bring in additional revenues that aren't just general fund. Our expenditure summary, you can see that we've got our general fund, expenses are the most. Quite honestly, we have an astronomical number of funds historically at Lake County government, and we've been working alongside our auditor to say, okay, does it make sense to have all of these funds? It certainly makes the accounting crazy. It just isn't always necessary. I think in the past we've said, might we mix this up? Make a fund. And that's not necessarily why you make funds. You really make funds to reserve or restrict funds for a really specific purpose, or because there's a real need to do so. And so we're trying to ask ourselves, where can we consolidate some of these? Anytime you have money between funds, it creates, a lot of work. And we just wanna make sure that it makes sense where we're having them. Alright, so we talked just about our strategy, wanting to have a long-term financial plan, wanting to be prudent about decision making. You can see up above that chart, where does our money come from? Most of it is property tax, but we have sales tax, state and federal allocations, IGAs, fees, grants, and enterprise fund operations. And we are looking at all of our enterprise funds this year to make sure we're charging enough. Do we have a good plan for funding those fully so they're not drawing down on any general funds? And this is where our money goes. We provide a lot of services at Lake County government. We provide a lot of statutory items. We also provide a lot of items that are not statutory. We provide fire, animal shelter, transportation. Through the summit stage, we do recreation, which of the 63 counties, we are one of only maybe 5 or 6 that provide rec services. And most of the smaller counties that aren't a city and county combined, they do is they have a recreation facility, and that is their rec offering. So we really go above and beyond there, and we know it's important, so we're trying to maintain it as much as possible, but each of those things does draw down on, you know, items that we might be having to figure out how to fund in the future. So that's why we're really trying to hone in on what's the most important and what can we do. Alright, so I'll talk just a little bit about our budget process. So ideally, we are completing one audit in 1 year. This is the goal for next year. Doing audits while doing a budget is fun. But we really hope that, you know, Q1, we're gonna be closing up, you know, 2025. We're gonna be posting back any invoices that come in for January, February. And we have projected those in this budget, what you have to do, so you can estimate where you would end for the year. And then we want to really get our audit papers in and have our audit wrapped up as close to the beginning of August as possible. Have our audited numbers back in hand. That's really important for us because at that point, we started a new budget process this year. We made an Excel sheet for every single department. That Excel sheet had a 2-year look back at closed books, and it had a column for what they wanted to project for the next year. And also included a tab for any capital requests, and then a tab for any FTE changes or needs. And those are requests, they don't necessarily get approved. I have not approved any new FTE. I've only taken FTE that existed and changed them around, and in fact, I think I dropped around 5 or 6. Might be more, honestly, at this point, I'd have to really sit down and look at it. There are a few things that have not filled. We're just not gonna fill, like, Will moved up to the finance director, and then we just didn't backfill a position in that department. We've just worked together on a lot of items. So in Q1, we really wanna start to get our last year dialed, our audit really closed up. We really wanna get these out to staff that they have, you know, information about what they did. Because our budgets for the last 2 years were done without audited numbers and fully closed books. It gave me a lot of pause to use those numbers to build the budget. And in fact, looking at 2025, we've supplemented about to where our 2026 budget is starting, which tells me that we missed a lot of things in the budget because we didn't have a 2-year back look. But this year we really tried to say, hey, let's look at what you spent in the past, let's look what you've budgeted in the past. Is this a realistic expense? What's in here? Is this a realistic revenue projection? If it's not, you need to knock it down. We need to be real about what we think we're actually gonna bring in. Q3, we get all of our budget requests to the finance team. We review and calibrate these requests. We identify areas that need clarification. We are very proud of ourselves for budgeting all of our matches to our grants. Something you should do that I don't know that it has always happened, and actually knowing every single grant, having all the documents lined out. Well, how many grants do you think we have?
Approximately 100.
And we get new ones every year, some roll off of that, so really staying on top of that and having all of that dialed. We did work sessions with you guys to talk about major themes, projected revenues. Our capital request this year, we really said we need to understand what we have and what it needs before we go through any items. We did put some money in the library budget to fix a hole in the roof. It was sort of a fix now. And then adjustments were made based on direction from the board, and we actually spent quite a bit of time in here working with you guys, making sure you understood the process, going through a line by line. Q4, the assessor finalizes the certified valuation figures in finance, and staff frantically scrambled to get this all changed based on what those come back as. So once we get those final valuations, we really do get that budget dialed in as close as possible and prepared for submission to you guys. I'm not gonna go over all of these items. If there's something you really want me to talk about, even people online, you can just let me know. Okay, let's talk about our COP.
I just have like a general question, I was looking
Yes,
through the book here, and I know you went over this, at the preliminary thing at the freight, but sometimes it looks like, money that was for personnel has been moved to professional services, so could you comment on that, cause I know you talked about professional services, and like, in some places, the personnel line is gone and it's professional services, in other places, the personnel line has grown, so can you give me maybe some examples
Yeah.
or how that
So-
shift is done?
I think CPD this year added a position to reduce their professional services because it made more sense. In some areas, we reduced our staffing costs because I told people they had to take a cut in their budget, so we really reduced the recreation staff.
So is it like a contractor that's being paid to do something instead of like a staff person who used to do it?
Yeah, so we're gonna have to, in terms of rec, we're saying, hey, full-time staff, we have to really work together to cover things, and in some places, we do have to ask ourselves, can we provide everything? Maybe not.
Right,
Maybe we only provide a program in the first quarter, and then we've got a different one in the third quarter. So we have made some changes there. From last year to this year, we have created an IT department when there wasn't specifically one. Mainly we realized not doing that well is costing us a lot of money, just having non-IT humans
right.
purchase items. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I'll try to find an example here. I just wasn't sure whether like in different budget lines, when the personnel cost drops a lot and the professional services go up a lot, is that basically contracting out what was in-house, or if it's something else that's going on?
Not always.
Not always,
So sometimes we will use professional services
Right.
where it makes more sense.
Yeah,
Instead of a staff member, I'm trying to think of a good example and I can't.
yeah, I can, there's a couple I noticed, but I can
Yeah.
get to that.
But mainly we had to just go and tell people, hey, you gotta cut back.
Yeah, got it. Okay, thanks.
And we cut some pro services in my department. I had a pretty, well, not my pro services, but I had a fairly decent contingency. What happened this year is there were a lot of agreements that former county commissioners
Good made.
gifted us, but the documents didn't exist, so then, when items like that do find their way out of the woodwork, you still owe for them. They were committed to by someone else on behalf of the county. So I did leave a fairly decent contingency because there've been a few of those this year, and our budget is so tight, that would be an area where it's like, oh no. Now I have this huge item to pay and I am in a tight enough budget, I don't have a lot to put towards it. Hopefully, none of that happens after a full year of really making sure we've caught any of those items. One thing that did increase is our insurance cost is pretty significantly increased this year. Debt obligations, we took out a COP, we only have one, and that was to support the courthouse renovation project. It was for a total of $8 million. We, our initial annual payment was $503,903, 26 cents. The total interest paid for 2025 was $343,903.26, And in 2026, the total interest paid will be $358, $287.50. The remaining debt obligation as of January 2026 is 12,907,000. That can't be right.
No, that
Oh,
can't be right.
actually it is because
With our
that's with all
interest?
the interest.
That's if the full term, if we
Yeah, if
on-
we keep it for the whole
keep it
time.
for the full term.
Oh,
Yeah,
God,
sorry.
okay. Slow.
We actually pulled out the debt schedule and put it in there this morning, cause you
Got it, thank
technically
you.
have to tell this to DOLA.
Got
So
it.
we made sure it was all in there.
Thank you.
We have, it's just for people who are listening, we're still in the planning phases of the courthouse renovation. We have actually not touched a penny of the COP. We wanna make sure we really have a viable plan and that even with these funding changes, it could continue, because we don't wanna get ourselves halfway through a project, find out it's more than we really can handle and have money out that we now have to figure out what to do with it. So we've been really conscientious to not use that.
And if I could just add something to that really quick too, for anyone who's in the room or online, and is not up to speed on that project, that is something we took over the reins to when we came in here. So that's a big motivation for us to not touch a penny of that while we're really vetting that and getting up to speed on the full situation, since it was not implemented by us. So we need to do a lot of due diligence on this whole project to make sure we're approaching it in a way that this board feels is responsible to the taxpayers and to Lake County.
Listen,
Okay, that's it, thanks.
I'm gonna keep it light on the mill levy situation, cause we're gonna talk about the mill levy, in depth. Here you can see what we built our budget on, the 39.5, which is where we're at now. You can see the total assessed valuation from the assessor and what that generates in property tax revenue. Here is the mill levy table we built our, built this off of. And we'll talk about that in depth here in a moment. So one thing is kind of interesting, we'll adopt our mill, certify our own mill by resolution, and then we are waiting to receive just a few mill sheets back from all the taxing entities. Because we're Lake County government, we actually certify all of those for every entity in the county. So we'll do that in a meeting next week. We had hoped maybe we could get them all in to do it all in one fell swoop today, but we had a few entities that won't adopt theirs for a moment. So as soon as we have those back, we plan to do that on the 16th. And then finance, Will and I will submit those all to DOLA for everyone. So we've got our budgeted revenues, and it just breaks it out for you guys in a little bit of a different way. So you see kind of where we are pulling in money from. Alright, so we have our estimated beginning fund balances. We'll put a footer in this before we post it online. Our audit should be done by the end of this month. We've worked incredibly hard and waited until we got these estimated balances from our auditor, knowing that a few of these could have small changes if you find something, but we really tried to make sure we worked with him to get what we needed. So beginning fund balances, here are the revenues we budgeted for the coming year for 2026. Here are the budgeted expenses by fund. Here are any transfers that would be made from one fund to another fund. Here's the net change for the year, and then here would be the ending fund balance. We noticed that some of these have no funds remaining, the ARPA funds, they're done. That fund will be closed. We really hope to close the grants fund. We don't have to have a grants fund, and earnestly, I think it got created because people were trying to not mix them up. And it's made budgeting the match and getting the right grant with the right department really, when you run a report for a department, you have to run 2 different reports and splice them together and, you know, all sorts of things, and it just makes it a lot harder. So we've talked with our auditor and are gonna work with him to say, is that something that we clean up this year? And I think it will be, especially in with today's technology, which wasn't available, I think, when they created that grants fund, we're able to use actual tags and create projects within our accounting system. So we can have a project that's the GoCo grant, and we can actually tag different items for that project and look at the reporting for that. Which I don't think that's what they were working with before. And we wanna do that, cause it'll give us much cleaner reporting. We're gonna move into the century we operate in. So revenues by fund, so we've got our 3-year backlog. So estimated for 2025, we know we've got 2 months left, but we did project out, what we would do. We've got our 26 budget and then our 26 budget, the percent of total for each fund. We've got our expenditures by fund, actuals, and the books are closed, so that's great, they're real. 2025 estimated, and our 26 budget, and then our percent of total for that.
Candace, it's such a huge difference between budget and estimated. For 2020, excuse me, I see estimated
Yeah.
versus it's 26
Yeah,
budget.
cause we can't give you actuals for 25, it's not close
Yeah.
yet, but we did try to project out, like, we know we're gonna have another payroll, we know we're gonna have, Jackie is purchasing the actual boxes, will go out the door and it'll get reimbursed, but it probably won't come in actually till the beginning of 26, and we can post it back to 25, we've got a couple of items like that.
So with the budgeted, or the estimate for this year, so if I'm reading this right, the estimate is that the county is spending about 13 million less than last year?
Yeah, I'm really mean and I say no.
Say what?
Said I'm really
Oh,
mean and I just say
So
no a
you
lot.
just started spending a lot less, okay, that's right.
We're trying to, cause I don't know if
Make sure we
you're
have the
seeing
money.
the difference in our
The
24
revenue.
versus what we have to actually do in 26.
Right, no, the revenue, well, that's kind of what I was surprised about, that the revenue was such a big drop from about 49 million in '24 to 35.6 estimated for this year in terms of revenue, that's pretty
Yeah.
significant.
And a big part of that is the mine.
The
Is the
mine,
mine is a big part of that?
losing the grants, we
Yeah.
lost so many grants
So a bunch of grants in the
from,
mine,
yeah, that they're just not gonna redo,
yeah,
Yeah,
which is a bummer, but as we see new grant opportunities, we're applying for everything that there is. There are just fewer grants and more people.
right,
I think it's worth noting
Going
too
after
that's what we're actually spending less. That doesn't include the things that we pumped the brakes on and decided to, get with the spirit of things, and be like, you know what, no, we can't do this right now.
like big capital projects,
Yeah, some of these bigger ticket items, things that were not easy to say no to, but, we found some solutions, stuff like, the hard work Matt put into the, coroner's facility, that was $1 million. Other things, that, big acquisitions that we can't do it right now, we
Yeah.
gotta really change how we're steering the ship.
yeah,
I also just wanna point out, like, when we're thinking about like E911, that's not our money. That is an entity statutorily hosted under the sheriff, right? But people pay into that, that's not ours. We don't get to touch that. We know insurance is gonna be really going up in the
Yeah.
next few years.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot in there, our emergency reserve, we can't touch that. There are a lot of these, the ambulance service fund, we can't touch that, the mine closure fund, we can't touch that. So really, this is what we have to utilize for items, and it's why we really have to be kind of conscientious. We know it could be really tight in future years, we're gonna have less funding from anywhere other than property tax or economic development. We know that things cost more each year with inflation. This becomes really important to be strategic and have a real plan. We also have a general fund reserve policy that says we need to have up to, I'm shooting from the top of my head, I think it's 3 months of operating expenses on hand. So that really, we just never can let that amount right there fall below that, and knowing that insurance is gonna go up so much, we really have to be conscientious to pay attention to that,
Well, I mean, it's interesting too, sorry, I didn't look at this ahead of time, but in the 2024 actual revenues, they booked the 8 million for the courthouses revenue. like, so that 48.9,
Got ya.
8 of it is that courthouse,
cause it came in that year.
yeah. So that's a big chunk of it. Got it, okay, thanks, sorry, I'm still digesting.
You're
This is-
okay.
This is great.
Okay, I'm not gonna run through every one of these, but every single department has their table. We have bucketed some of those items. We weren't gonna give you 900 lines per department, so some of these might roll up different than what we had looked at, in those original, well, and our budget's just changed so much since we did the budget town hall. If anything, we've really dialed some things back for that budget town hall, just for you, because I know that you have been paying attention to from the beginning. We really defined other expenses really well in the budget town hall, we didn't like break it out
Sure.
in
Yeah.
here. We really are trying to get away from the other expenses
Yeah.
categories. But our, part of our software and some of the cleanup that we'll still be doing is, I think people at some point in the history of Lake County government could create their own accounting lines. And they would just copy one they had created and change the name of it, not realizing the category they assigned it to was still a different category.
Interesting.
So we've got all of these, we've got our FTEs. If you want me to stop anywhere, you just tell me. You can see mine is a little higher. I do wanna say that when we look at personnel costs, this is the first time that we have ever used the software we have to actually fully calculate what it looks like to give a COLA, what it looks like to give a merit, what if someone picked every option we gave them for health insurance because they could. That was all done manually in a spreadsheet before this year. So I'd venture to say that these are a lot more accurate than what on earth we were doing before. It would be pretty impossible to do that perfectly. And so we do know that, we put in every position, what they would be paid, et cetera. And you can kind of see like some of these are actually a little closer to like what really happened, or what we have done in the past. And actually that number might be dropping, we went and we cut an FTE. Or we will cut an FTE. This will be one of the first years that Nat here will be really helping us when we need to use outside counsel, and it'll be recorded in his budget, and we'll try to code it in a way that we know what that outside counsel is for, so we can kind of keep track of that. I think spread out across a million different things, it was kind of hard to see.
Does that $72,000 reflect, 73-ish, reflect all of our,
It should, we should only
Attorney
need
services?
water, DHS, and I do think this is the first year we'll have done it this
Sure,
way,
sure.
so.
I get that there's growing opportunity, I
Yeah.
was just wondering if we've talked about it, just wondering if
Well,
we're getting to see it.
It wouldn't be DHS, right, cause that's a
Yeah,
pass,
their
sorry,
own-
that's a
they have
pass
to go
through
in their own
the
bucket.
state, a lot of that. But it'll be water, we get into any other litigation that's unforeseeable, certainly water, is the one that's foreseeable at this
Okay.
point.
Thanks.
Ops, you'll see a pretty big increase in this department because we moved all of their IT, and we actually brought on an IT team, which we have never really had before. And while I think this will be, a pretty hefty cost to get started up front, I even think next year it could be really high. I think if we would get the right systems in place, I think we have traditionally spent this in spades, doing things as one-offs and then nothing works. But we're still paying for things to not work, so I would anticipate, and I will break IT out into its own department next year so we can see it separately. This is kind of interesting. Liz has always been our IT department, our operations department, our communications department, our administrative team, which is awesome, but also excessive for one human and carrying all of the IT. That's kind of where we're at, is we've just had someone who that's not what they do the best that they could, and she did a phenomenal job doing that for us. We've got CPD, Josh over here, our new deputy county manager, works really closely with that department, their direct report to him. He is gonna be working with their team to look at, do we have good systems, can you make them clearer, can it be more streamlined? Are we charging enough, and really doing that deep work with that team alongside, the both of us will work together, but they are direct report to Josh over here. We are really trying to do our due diligence and look at other counties, other communities near us, and ask ourselves, are we streamlining as much as we could? What will that look like in the future? And then also, just for your context, housing is in the CPD department, so a lot of the rest of the 10-2 project is in there. Tourism and economic development, this department, their budget is mostly offset by general fund. So just to give, we call it tourism and economic development because that's the fund it is on our books. Or not the fund, but the accounting codes. We do also have a tourism fund that I don't know that I put a sheet in here for it. The tourism fund is money collected from lodging tax, thank you. And that covers a lot of the staff in that department, so that is separate from this, just so you know. OEM, we're really excited. Because we have two OEM humans, Gary and we have Sammy. Gary just joined us this week, and I'm very excited to pass that hat off. Yay! But also, we're really excited because we got a grant to cover these positions and the majority of the expenses related to this department. So that feels pretty awesome.
Is that the intergovernmental revenue?
No, the IGA I think is, well, you'll have to help me.
Pardon?
The IGA revenues for OEM.
Yeah, it's classified as an intergovernmental because it's transferring in,
Okay, from the grants
Oh,
fund.
I see.
Sorry,
Yeah.
thank you. But yay, we're excited to have those two people. We're excited for that to not be me.
Yay!
We've had a lot of crazy things happen this year, and every time I'm like, oh, wow, here we are. So this is the amount that we committed to the Leadville Lake County Fire Department. We fund 70% of that budget. We did have to give some pushback and cut what we were gonna give that department. We wanna say a really big thank you to Dan, who's been a great partner, who's worked with us, who understands why it's so hard for us this year. And want to continue to work with him to make sure that we're providing the best services we can, that if we are able to fund it differently in the future, awesome, we will, but it's just not where it shook out this year. The animal shelter, we did push back, I'm gonna say it was less than $30,000 that we ended up cutting, maybe right at the 30 mark, I can't remember off the top of my head. But we did have to give a little bit of pushback and say, hey, if we're not adding additional staffing costs, we may have to say, let's hold here for this year. And so we did give a little pushback there. Statutory funds, these are ones that we're required to have, so road and bridge. I would like to say if our revenues are magically higher than we have projected, we will be giving some of those back, so the areas we cut to include road and bridge. We really appreciate Michael, it's never fun to be asked to improve the roads, hear how much they should be better, and then have your budget cut, it's not fun. But he and his team work incredibly hard. They are such giving people that get up early and plow when it's freezing cold and dark out, and really try to maintain their equipment in ways that like allow us to operate, so this is a really big statutory requirement for us.
Candace, just to clarify, when you say budget cut, you mean less than they asked for, not less than they spent this year, last year?
Less than they asked for
Yeah.
and less than we budgeted for at the
Initially.
budget town hall, we had to go
Yeah.
back and say,
Cause it's still $500,000 more, say, than what's being spent this year. At
Yeah.
least on the number here, so, okay, I just wanted to clarify.
we put more towards paving, but had to
Sure.
come back and cut it, and I think there was a piece of equipment that really, the engine probably needs to be
Yeah.
rebuilt, and we just said, could we limp it
Postpone, yeah,
through,
sure,
you know?
okay.
We are taking a look at some of our older equipment, which we haven't necessarily really looked at a really high level and said, hey, can we part with some of this? And we
Right.
are gonna see if maybe we could dispose of some of that if it doesn't have value, or is it needed, or is it just sitting there unused? So that is a big thing that we'll be looking at in the first quarter. For public health, they've had a lot of funding cut this year, from the state. We cover whatever they cannot cover from our general fund. So that is, you know, a bigger drawdown on our general funds. They are not providing any more services than they ever were. So much as they're losing a lot of their grants. I will say Kelsey has done an amazing job of really applying for grants when and where she finds them. And we actually, I think, got another one after we got this done, so we'll do an amendment to the budget after this is adopted to add that, but it won't be awarded till next year. And we won't put it on the books until it's actually awarded. Human Services, they have had quite the year. Human Services has lost a lot of their funding from the state and the Fed. I will say that we've got a new DHS director, and I believe that she has got her budget really, really well dialed. Considering we've had so many cuts, I don't know that has been as dialed as I would like to have seen it in the past. And that's an area where we're really trying to make sure that we are being intentional to draw down appropriately on all of our allocations with the states. You can only spend certain dollars in certain ways, and trying to, honestly, finance has been meeting with DHS every month to say, okay, what did you draw down on, and have a year to date, instead of trying to figure that out at the end of the year.
So Candace, I don't know if this is an accounting quirk, but I'm curious, like in 2023, the bulk of the spending was other expense, and then it's been shifted to personnel. Is that just kind of an accounting quirk of how it was set up before, or was it just, has it been restructured over that time frame?
Yes, we fully restructured it, so
Okay.
because we get state dollars in allocations and we get some federal dollars for DHS, they're part of our CFA, which is a report that we have to turn in as part of our audit. It's just a schedule of federal awards that's audited every year, and DHS is one of the areas they audit. I believe in the past, some of their accounting per their actual allocations they can draw down on, like they spend, and then they get to draw down only on particular programs. I don't know how well those were done in the past. I think it's just an improvement in accounting.
Yeah, so just kind of restructuring,
Yeah, cause they have a lot of grant programs and like drawing down on things actually appropriately.
Okay.
I will say a lot of their staffing costs are offset by allocations with the state and what they're drawing down on.
Got it.
Disclaimer here, and I have to fix this, and I thought I had, so it's weird it's like that. They have 3 FTE and they have interns in this department.
I was wondering how I've done that too.
They're not 23 FTE. Do I need to do an amendment or something? Just need to fix the typo.
We'll just fix it.
Awesome. I worked on this pretty late, so can't be perfect. So DHS, one of the big things we know is that they are proposing, and it won't be finalized till I think the JVC does the joint budget committee for the state does all of its final allocations and cuts to their own budget. They are proposing, moving towards a regional model, which would change things for us on a staffing level, and change how much we can draw down for staff. It would change how many staff we keep versus how many would work in that regional model. The state really doesn't have any direction for us. But we're doing it next year, so that may really change this. So you'll notice, that their expenses are less than their revenues. And they had a little bit of money left over this year that I will roll into their fund balance. I think it's intelligent to leave maybe a $500,000 buffer, because what if we have to make it through the year with the plan we have, and also we have to start to pay into that facility? I don't really wanna run their fund into the negative, so I left a fairly healthy balance, just because all of this stuff is so up in the air. And we literally get a day's notice when it changes. Our senior center, we didn't do a separate budget. Kelsey really manages that, and it's rolled up, or maybe we did, sorry. This is their budget. We got a really big grant for them, so we're excited about that. We don't say they have an FTE, cause that person is not, fully full-time, and a lot of it's offset by allocations. Our veteran services officer, I say he's a 0 FTE because he really works very part-time. He just submits hours. We submit them to the Veteran Services Office for the state, and then they reimburse us for a portion of his hours. So that really, it is offset quite a lot, and he doesn't work that many hours to be an FTE. And we've got our enterprise fund. Our airport, which, one of our big focuses is trying to make sure that it is cost neutral in the future. I think there are some things we can do with our fuel farm. I think there's some agreements we can get in place to have people, lease the hangar space. We're really working on overhauling this and saying if it's an enterprise fund, that it would be enterprising. Landfill recycling center. We know that we're gonna have to spend $3 million at some point, plus whatever new requirements take to cap that thing and keep emissions down in the future. We did not put anything into that project this year, but we do know that that's something coming up. And we are almost done with the process of, we had applied for a new scale. So we can actually, be weighing and for a grant for a scale, and we're gonna be using that this next year to make sure we're actually weighing and charging enough for our landfill.
When you say coming up, is there any kind of estimate in terms of time frame yet, or are we still trying to figure out when it might be capped? Are we talking 5 years, 15 years, no idea?
Between 3 and 5.
Yeah,
Between 3 and 5, okay,
Yeah.
that's soon, got it.
We've got the first steps lined up for moving pits, monitoring wells, to allow for the next cell to be expanded upon, and then the biggest purchase will be the liner.
water and natural resources, it has been in the startup phase for the last few years, so it's had to have some money from the general fund to cover it getting started up. We are very excited to get it to the point where it is actually, issuing permits for people, and that we're actually pulling in, revenues from that water fund. I'm just gonna hit on these without running through each of them, but if someone has a question, I can sure go into one. Blood lead, we have a blood lead fund. It's us, CDPHE, the EPA, Lake County government, and that fund has money in it that is specifically for blood lead monitoring. We have to request a drawdown, and CDPHE and the EPA have to allow us to draw down. We've got our mine closure fund, which we put 100,000 to this year, but we really do need to, as we get our head wrapped around what do we have in reserve, what do we need for the next 5 years, need to ask ourselves how much does that need to be, can't be touched until the mine actually has like a really big drop off from backing off of operations. The lodging tax fund, we talked about that. Our CapEx fund, we put all of our fleet in there, so we're tracking it appropriately. I don't think it's ever been budgeted for there before. Our recreation capital fund, I put some money in there, but unfortunately had to come back and cut it back out. We know that we're gonna have to replace the turf on the field. That was $800,000-ish when we got it, and I can't imagine that's gonna be the same rate it is in a few years. Not a few years, when we finally have to do it. This also leaves us no other way to fix anything else that we have related to rec, so this is something that we do wanna start asking ourselves as we have that capital plan, what the actual plan is. Our grants fund, which is where we track all our revenues and expenses related to grants. The insurance fund, that's our health insurance, our cap insurance, our county health pool. E911, those are statutory funds that are not ours, and they're funded, isn't it a tax on the cell phone usage?
Individual.
I'm gonna add something real quick here. We're on
Yeah,
page 17 of 44. I'm making notes of the questions I need to ask. I really value input from anyone in the room with respect for all the staff that has to be present and the time that we've got to work through things.
Sure.
I'm gonna ask that, let's save questions for future correspondence so we
Sounds
can
good.
try and get things done on time. I appreciate that, but I do wanna hear, I know I value the input. Let's talk about any of the questions we have with this after.
Yeah, no, I understand, I just hadn't seen this until this morning, so.
This will be it's gonna be online, we'll have it available for the public, for anyone who is gonna have more questions, for all the people online and everyone in the room. We'll be happy to answer all the questions we have about this moving forward.
I'm happy to sit down with you now that I've survived this week.
Yeah,
Cool, let's talk to Sam.
Alright, that's really, I guess I'll hit on this personnel summary. And then I'm gonna stop and just ask me anything you wanna ask me,
Oh.
unless you want me to.
okay. Questions, Paul, if you have them.
I only had one more, but I'll let you finish with, and I just missed it with the sheriff's department. I don't remember if you mentioned on that of how that's grown over the last 2 years or what the
Yeah.
projection of that is. It's on page like 22, I think. But it's fine,
I
if
can
we
go
don't need to talk
back
about
up
that
to
now,
that.
we can figure that out later.
So I will say that Heath really worked with us, which we're very lucky. I don't know if you've seen what other counties are going through, but it's looking rough with them and their sheriff.
Yeah.
Heath really cut back on his fleet this next year on how many vehicles we were gonna turn over. He cut some FTEs for us. He agreed to budget some at 50%,
Yeah, okay.
to hire throughout the year. And generally speaking, if he is close to the third quarter and hasn't filled a position, so we have to budget for what we're gonna try to fill for him, and he
Sure.
historically has a lot of vacancies.
Yeah, got it.
So he's worked with us before when we've had to say, hey, you didn't fill this, could you use this somewhere else, and he is always more than willing to do that, so.
Okay.
You do have to know when we are budgeting for him, we're budgeting for what we hope to fill,
Right,
knowing
I
it,
see.
it may not fully do that.
Mhm.
So personnel cost. We know that this is one of our largest ongoing expenditures. We offer good benefits. We offer, retirement, and insurance costs are going up. We also know that turnover is very expensive, and Lake County government historically has a very high rate of turnover. We are really trying to focus on culture and do that through the addition of some additional staff. So I think it's very hard for the person in this seat to be available to change culture, to be available to improve systems. And so we've really restructured our executive team to say, hey, we know we need to focus on these things. So this number, is a little off because of that 23 in public health, not public health, DHS. So apologies for that. They support the core services. Very few of us don't wear 18 hats. And we really want to, probably will not be able to happen in 2026 because there's a lot to do. One of the really big projects we wanna do is start to take a look at how could we have tiers of employees. So I think historically, or what it's looked like in the last few years, from the HR standpoint is the only way you could move up is if you became a deputy or a director. And there are other ways to move up within an organization. You can be an accountant 1, do training for a year or 2, finish some classes, be better at your job and move up to an accountant 3. And we really don't have that structure. We really don't have, I think some work was done before on like trying to get an idea of where people should be relative to other communities, relative to what we bring in, et cetera. But we really do wanna start to have this clear path forward for people, and also to be really transparent. Just because you're a director doesn't mean every single person gets paid the same thing. Everybody's workload looks different, the requirements for their job look different, and I think we wanna really be transparent and clear about how you can move up. Maybe you've worked for us for 10 years. Maybe at the 10-year mark, you can bump up a step within the band that you're in, but we've never really had that document, we've never really had that path forward for staff. And that is something that I think in 2027, we really will be able to say, hey, where do we shake out so we can have a good plan? You don't think about turnover being expensive, but when someone turns over, you're paying out all of their leave. You then have to refill that position. There are a lot of things about turnover that cost us a lot, and those are hard to plan for, and so we really want to do a lot better with our staffing levels and just retaining people, it's hard in mountain communities to be able to stay and be a part of the community, and I think getting this dialed allows us to be a good economic driver. You don't stay somewhere if you don't have a job that allows you to stay, and so this is a really big thing that we are dialing into this year. And also just asking ourselves as positions turn over, do we refill this? Do we refill it differently? Is this one person? Is it not? Etc. That's it.
Beautiful job. Let me clap. Yeah. Candace,
Yes.
I feel like I must not be understanding one thing, and that is like
Yes.
where, under the general fund, you've got all of these things that are statutory and non-statutory, the departments, but like what about, I feel like we're missing quite a few departments, so like where would those live? Like
Which
the
ones?
library or rec?
We did miss the library, did I miss the library?
I cannot find it in
Shoot.
here. And I can't find the rec department in here.
It's under, rec is in here.
Is it? Okay. I was looking under the general fund. We have assessor, board of county commissioner, coroner, district attorney,
I
sheriff.
hope we didn't miss it in here. It is in the total overall fund balance, cause
No, I'm
that's
sure.
from our accounting software.
I'm sure, just wondering if we can see those,
Let me look.
or if they live somewhere else. Thank you.
No,
I might
I
have forgot to put in the library.
bet we did, but it is in the totals.
I'm sure you did it.
Well, I just realized that, sorry.
It's okay. This is not a big deal to me.
What we're adopting is really that beginning fund balance,
Yeah.
total revenues, total expenditures, but we will update this.
Thank you.
Okay,
And thank you for asking.
yeah, so we'll add
We're
that,
human beings too.
Yeah, you shouldn't be able to edit perfectly at 2 a.m.
yeah,
I'll just say as an outsider, this is incredibly helpful. I mean, this is tremendous what you've done.
It's a,
Thanks.
yeah.
it's a huge service to the Lake County community.
We might have, I thought,
I'm not
I
seeing
bet we
rec.
missed rec and library.
Okay,
The
thank
library
you.
stuff for this.
We will run through
Thank
this
you.
at a high level. It is in the totals
you.
that we're adopting,
Thanks,
cause
Paul.
that's just exported from Tyler.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Oh my gosh, do not apologize.
Yeah.
I just thought that was, I thought I didn't understand.
No, you do understand, we just
Yay.
missed them.
Yay, that's okay.
We added those 3 last night. I will go and update this, we'll make sure we get it back out and it will be posted online with all of those departments.
Okay, thanks.
Alright, so I'm gonna take a look at the resolution. To adopt. So that we can adopt this thing. Is that good, or do we need to stop the hearing?
Well, the hearing was already stopped, we're in your presentation.
Okay, I'm sorry, I forgot I was answering.
So I think we can go into the resolution. I'll just note, when I pulled it up through this, the formatting is really wonky, so it really needs to be downloaded to Word and then
You have
printed.
to open it in the app.
Yeah, yeah.
I've already got everything
Okay,
worded out,
good.
but
Yeah.
we'll redo the budget, we'll rewrite the budget one before we get everything done, and then updated information.
Open it up, okay.
Yeah, it's very,
It's been exciting putting all of these documents
I
together.
tried to fix it and then I looked in the app and I
Okay,
screwed up.
so we've probably done a little overkill in here, but we put absolutely everything DOLA asks us for in here. So you've got your beginning and ending fund balances, you've got your budget revenues, expenditures, you've got appropriations by fund and by source, which is required. So absolutely everything that actually is required for adopting your budget is in this document for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I do it?
Mhm.
I move to adopt the annual budget and making appropriations for the county of the fiscal year commencing January 1st, 2026, resolution number 2025-34.
I will second.
To a vote,
Aye.
Aye.
aye,
Alright.
it feels monumental.
Well, I know, I feel like crying.
Kind of does.
That was
I'm
huge.
so sad we missed 2 departments.
No, do not take that on.
I tried so hard.
I mean,
You guys,
it's
it doesn't
still
matter.
like A plus, like if
Yeah.
two missed questions out of a 35, question trigonometry
Okay,
test.
just wait, next year, there's gonna be so many more tarts and it's gonna be perfect.
You're gonna be so well rested.
I'm gonna be so well rested. Okay, so then we need to move on to the next.
Don't think so.
Find the levy.
Alright.
Do you want me to pull this
You want
up?
this, is that an agenda? Yep. Oh man, thanks, you rock. Okay, agenda item number 3, discussion and consideration of resolution 2025-35. Certification of mill levy for Lake County. It's to be led by Candace Bryans, county manager.
I think we've talked about this a lot together. I built the budget on 39.5 mils, cause that's the direction I felt that we would be moving, and this is what that breaks out to, within the departments that get a portion of our mill. I don't really have anything else to say, other than I'm gonna let you guys just
Yeah.
do your thing.
Okay. I would like to offer some comment on why I feel like I would like to not raise the mill levy. If this is a good time for that, I'm gonna go ahead and let it rip. The mill levy, is not does not shift the needle in a massive way. Currently, anyone who sat through what we were just talking about, with Lake County budget, and if you didn't, it's still not gonna be hard to understand that we are going through a lot of changes right now. We're identifying a lot of places within the county where we can tighten things up, where we can be better with taxpayer dollars. We're finding a lot of new options. We're also factoring in how advancing technologies are changing and creating space for us in certain departments to save dollars. We are addressing inefficiencies of the past, nothing anyone previously has done intentionally, but we're finding new and better ways to reinvent how Lake County operates. And this is a daily ongoing process. It feels like every week there's something new that pops up, like, oh, well, we've been doing this way, and now we can do this way if we put in some work and shift things. And I feel like we're just getting started on this journey, and it's gonna take a long time, but as we do that and as we identify ways that we have traditionally done things that can be improved, I feel like that's gonna carve out more room for us than simply raising taxes in a blanket manner across everyone in this community. I know there are a lot of people who strongly feel like, hey, I can chip in a little bit more to make sure that some of these services aren't cut. And right now, we're not looking at cutting services, we're looking at maintaining services. And as we tighten the ship up, as we find operational efficiency, and as we enhance our fiscal, in hand with that, as we enhance our fiscal responsibility, we're gonna find ways to enhance services moving forward. This looks like a lot of hard decisions and a lot of pain points right now. I've heard things thrown around from the public and emails. People are under the impression that we're deficit spending, that we are in the red, and I'm like, no, that is not the case. We are not underwater. Yeah, are we treading water? Yeah, but we're not looking at cutting back anything regarding safety net programs or vital services to vulnerable people. That said, I wanna lean on that, and I wanna lean on new funding sources that we can look for moving forward, instead of applying a blanket tax across everyone in this community. Another part of my reasoning for that is that I've sat in this room and I've listened to stories face to face with people. I've talked to people out on the street who are in really tough spots. People are getting crunched from every direction, like Commissioner Bullock has stated multiple times. Everyone's insurance costs are going up, everyone's bills at the grocery store are going up. People are spending more in every aspect of their lives. And there are people in this community who are trying to decide between whether they're gonna put gas in their car to get to work or whether they're gonna eat. And that's the kind of person who is also gonna see a tax increase if we raise the mill levies. And those people, I know what it's like to be in that situation. I've lived that. That doesn't go away. It's like a toothache. You go to sleep worrying about it, you wake up worrying about it. You can't show up as a parent for your kids, you can't show up to work right, when that's a stress you deal with every day. And I feel like raising taxes on those people as well is a slap in the face when we've got so much more work we can accomplish, not only in the walls of this building, due to the hard work of our staff, which I'm extremely grateful for, but also as commissioners, as we look abroad for new funding sources and new ideas. So to me, I feel like I don't wanna put the burden on not only the people who are up for chipping in more, but also the people who just simply can't afford it right now. And it's a hard decision, and I've lost a lot of sleep over it. I wrestle with it, and I'm trying to do as much outreach as I can to explain this every day to people who are reaching out to me, like, hey, you guys need to raise the mills because you're deficit spending or the county's underwater, and that's just not the case. The case is that we have a lot of work to do, and we're making these hard decisions every day in this building, department by department, staff member by staff member, about how we can be better. And I wanna do that before we put the burden on people in a blanket fashion across every homeowner in this community. And that's not just the homeowners, cause that ripple effects are gonna be renters when their landlord's bills go up. There's also gonna be people who are saying it's not that much, and the actual dollar amounts are not that much to some folks, but it's also, it's the precedent that it sets, that we're just gonna rely on more tax dollars to fix everything. And I don't wanna start off that way, and I wanna continue on this journey that I'm beyond grateful that my colleagues and staff have started about how can we be better with tax dollars before we just ask for more tax dollars. No matter what shape or form it's coming in, I think we can do a lot more looking in the mirror than we can sticking our hand out and asking for more from the community. So I hope that clears up some misconceptions about some people's opinions or thoughts on raising the levies.
Thanks, Andy.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I appreciate hearing that. I like our conversation last week, I was in favor. And I appreciate that the board has, or that the staff have created a budget to 39.5, but I was in favor of raising it to 40, which they asked for. And I totally hear all the points you're making. I also think that our staff have done a really good job of trying to tighten the belts already. And the proposed 40 was, with having done all that work, would have been like, I don't know, to me, a sign of respect that we saw the work they were doing and we were giving them what they were asking for to do their job at an already reduced amount of resources, because we've seen insurance rates go up, because we're giving COLA raises. Like, a big part of that is what has increased our budget. And we're not doing deficit spending. I'm sorry anybody thinks that way, but I don't think that we've talked about that in this room in any way. And services will be affected, not our strong safety net services. Those are being affected by the federal government and the state government. But the services that people will see affected, even with a 40 mil, are things like our rec department, which our staff have talked about, trying to shift things around, maybe providing fewer programs, etc. Like, we don't know what's gonna go. We're kind of in this situation where it's just gonna keep getting worse. And so our services are going to be affected by keeping the mills at 39.5. And our people's taxes could go up based on assessment, even if we don't change the mills. So I do think it's a complicated amount of things going on. And I'm glad we had the conversation we had last week. And I just approved a budget at 39.5, but I would still be in favor of going up to 40. To make sure that some of those services aren't affected, like paving and the rec department.
Yeah, it's a very complicated, but sitting in the Board of Adjustments and hearing people's stories about how their tax bills have increased so much. So for me, I ran on fiscal restraint, and we also have the mine closure looming. So when that happens, that will be a fiscal cliff, and talk about cutting services. And so I feel like going on a diet now and seeing how this year goes and maybe revisit it next year. Maybe people in the public next year, most people will say, you ran on paving the roads. How come none of the roads are paved? And we can say, we wanted to keep the mill levy where it was at. So I agree with Andy on this one. I think there's a lot of perception out there, like my insurance, health insurance went up, you know, my taxes went up because my valuation skyrocketed. And so for me, it's a perception out there as a representative of people in this community. I feel like it's not that much, but the perception is quite a bit. And when this comes out in the paper, people may say, you know, maybe there'll be a bigger conversation about what we wanna do next year, and then I would also like to point out all the money that we pulled back, you know, over this year, and I'm really proud of that. It's unfortunate for some of the people that we've had to pull the money back from, but I feel like this is the year to reset, and I feel like this is part of the reset. And it's unfortunate for some people, but let's just see how it goes and hope that sales tax continues to grow and people wanna come here and build and some of these new neighborhoods get approved. So I guess I'm with Andy, and I would be in favor of the 39.5 mill levy to stay where it's at.
I also just wanna say, Andy, I know you've gotten a lot of communication in the last 48 hours. And I'm sure that's really complicated when we've already had the good discussion about mills, but we haven't certified it yet. And I hope that a lot of the people who have been reaching out to any of us engage more in the future before we come to a point like this. Because it is one of our main priorities for us as a BOCC, is to increase community engagement, is to increase civil engagement. So I hope that people understand that it is important to engage with your commissioners, have conversations, make your desires known before we are in this position where we're actually voting on something that we've had lots and lots of conversations about throughout the year. So I really wanna impel people to actually engage throughout the year with us instead of at the last minute.
Yeah, the digging deep into the community and listening is the only reason that I've heard all the stories that I've had about people who are right on the cusp, right on the edge, and sitting in people's living rooms who are worried about how they're gonna make ends meet. And what really struck me was that I don't hear, without getting out and about and having the opportunities to hear those people, I don't think their voices are heard enough. And those, you know, to Elsa's point here, I would hope that the folks who are really struggling are also an important component of who needs to reach out and tell us like, hey, I can't afford another, you know, it's death by 1,000 paper cuts and this is just another one.
Yeah, it's also important to know that those people, if they're not reaching out to us or reaching out to anybody, it's hard for us to connect them with the services that are available. There are a lot of people in this community who are trying to help people who are at that edge and struggling at that edge, and it's not just the government that provides some of the social safety net, so the more we can engage through community engagement and find out who is struggling the most, the more we can actually help people. Connect them to the services that maybe aren't even the government's purview.
Somebody popped up to join and I didn't get to admit them.
They might have, cause they might have fallen off
Okay, sorry, just making sure I don't have somebody blocked.
Okay.
It's Matt's turn. Do you wanna do the resolution?
Sure, you guys all done?
Yep,
I will make a motion to approve resolution 2025-35 to certify the mill levy for Lake County at 39.5.
Oh, sorry, seconded.
alright, to a vote,
Aye.
aye.
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys, thank you
Well
commissioners.
done, staff.
Thank you, staff, and with that, it is 10:44 a.m. and we will conclude this special meeting of the Lake County Board of County Commissioners.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.